Today in the AWS Developers Podcast, we're talking about the Builder Center. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for downloading the AWS Developers Podcast. We are available every Friday morning European time, in all good podcast application. If it is a good podcast application, there is a good chance that you can find the AWS Developers Podcast. We are there on Apple, on Deezer, on Spotify, on YouTube, and many others that are broadcasting or publishing our feed. And thank you for them. Today we're going to talk about a tool, a website, a portal. I'm not sure how to define it, but my guest will help me to define it and to explain what you can find there. It's called Builder Center. It's a new developer experience that AWS launched a few months ago. We're not going to talk only about what is in there for you, but also how it works. And it's a good use case of a large scale web app. So I thought it was interesting for you builders to talk about the architectures and the tools and the technical choice that the team that built it made. So we are going to have this two-side conversation, what it is, how it was built, with my guest today, Roopal Jain, your software development engineer in the Builder Center team. Thank you for joining the podcast today. Thank you for being here. Maybe you can first explain what is the Builder Center.
Yeah, sure. Hey, thanks, Sap, for the introduction. So, Builder Center is basically a community platform for AWS builders specifically. So, it's a website, or you can say it's a portal where different AWS builders can come together and they can collaborate. When I say collaborate, they can share their views, they can share their different articles about AWS, their learnings, and they can connect with different builders who are already working on AWS, who has expertise of AWS and all. And then there are some new features which are there onto the Builder Center, which we'll talk about in this particular podcast. But before that, it was not like that AWS did not have any platform for the community.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is like a skill builder, there is the console. There are different places where communities can connect. So
Exactly.
why a new one?
Exactly. So the vision of the Builder Center is not to create one more new community platform. Basically,
Yeah.
as I was saying, that there were already bunch of different platforms for AWS community. For example, skill builder, as you said, repost was one of them,
Repost,
startup.aws was
yes.
one of them, community.aws was one of them. So there are a bunch of places where different AWS builders can go and they can talk about AWS, they can learn about AWS and all. The specific vision of Builder Center was not to create one more platform for community, but rather consolidate all different islands which AWS currently have. So there are a bunch of different AWS provided properties or websites where community builders can go and they can do different activities. For example, on community.aws, they can go and they can write articles. On repost, they can read some topics, or they can do the question answering, right? Just like Stack
Yeah,
Overflow.
ask questions
Skill,
and receive response. Yeah, like
ex
Stack Overflow. You said it. That's the easiest way to explain repost.
exactly. So there is a workshops.aws where builders can go and they can perform multiple workshops, read about workshops and all. The vision of Builder Center was to bring everything in one place. So as a builder, it was a prominent feedback that they get a hard time to look for a exact information quickly. So there are multiple websites, there are multiple places where articles will be there, blog post will be there. So it's kind of uh, very sparse experience for the builders. And as per the feedback, they wanted to have something consolidated, a one place to go where, so just like a console, the AWS console is one place for having
All the
accessing all your
services.
AWS services, stitching all your different infrastructure and everything. One place, console. You go inside console, you get everything about all the AWS services. Similarly, the Builder Center is everything of AWS outside console. That's what the vision of Builder Center is.
So it's a collection of links, But not only, there is also a place where a community member can write their own blog post. There is a page with all the events, like the community events, the Builder Love, the user groups events, the Cloud Club, the community days. And there are tools. There is a toolbox page which links all the important tools per programming language. So if you're C++ developer, you can go to the C++ tab and see the links to the toolkits, the SDK, the blog posts that are related to C++. So it's really a huge collection of resource for builders, for people that are building solution on AWS, correct?
Exactly. So the aim is that the builder should be able to find the information which they're looking for quickly, correctly, and in one place. So currently we are in very early stage of Builder Center, so I won't say that we are in a state where we can replace all other different AWS properties and everyone can come to the Builder Center. But eventually the goal is the same. The goal is to consolidate these all properties and bring everything into one place.
And then I saw there is an authenticated options as well, so I can sign in for the Builder Center and connect with a Builder ID. I know it's not your team, but very briefly, what is this Builder ID? How is it different than my account ID?
Yeah, so Builder ID is, again, as you said, that it's not specific to the Builder Center, but it's a authentication mechanism or user identity outside of console. So in console, so let's say I'm working for any enterprise, I get a account access, and there I'm working on behalf of that particular enterprise where the IAM authentication everything happens. Builder ID is a individual's identity. So Builder
Mm.
ID remains with that particular person, irrespective with which enterprise you're working, or whether you're freelancer, you are switching the enterprises and all. The Builder ID for a human remains same, and that's a mechanism. If we can say it's a single sign-on SSO mechanism provided by AWS for individual builders outside console. So the aim of the AWS is to bring all their different portals to use the Builder ID. I'm not talking about the console, except console, what all different portals are,
Mm-hmm.
so that the users or the AWS builders need not to remember the credentials for each and every different portals like Builder Center or Skill Builder, Repost, and other places. Eventually, the aim is that all these portals should use the Builder ID
The
for the
Builder ID.
authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in parallel to the Builder Center, our team was also working for one more very AWS level goal, that is to consolidate the builder profile. So there is a builder ID, which is one of the construct to do the authentication for the user, and there is a profile associated with a builder. So when I say profile, uh, it contains your all the information. So if you log into the Builder Center, if you go to my profile,
Yeah, I
there
can
you
see
will
my
see,
name, my picture, the country where I am, my interest, a bio, recent activities, and things like that.
yeah, exactly, your profile picture and then your different social media links and all. So that whole profile, previously, what was the issue was the challenge was that before the builder ID, different portals has had different credentials, different authentication mechanism, so as the different profile as well. So if I'm going to repost, I'm again giving the same information again. I'm giving my name, I'm uploading my image,
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving my interest or whatever information they ask as a profile. If I'm going to startup.aws, again I'm doing the same thing. If I'm going to some other places, I'm creating a profile again. So in parallel to the Builder Center, one more project which was running was the profile consolidation. So, and the builder ID was a main construct for that. As different portals started coming along with the builder ID, so that they started using a backend system called builder profile. Again, these are two different systems in the backend.
Mm-hmm.
Builder ID is owned by a different org. Builder profile is owned by a different org within AWS. But yes, eventually the aim is that all these portals should start using builder ID as well as the builder profile. So that as a builder, if I'm providing my profile information in one place, that should reflect across all the AWS properties.
Okay. And one of the really cool things about Builder ID is it's something that was launched recently. It's the signing with
Google.
social networks, with Google, login with Google. So I don't need to create my own user email address and password, and I can just sign in one click. That's new at AWS, and it's good to see this type of paper cut remove for customers.
Yeah, that is quite new. I think that got launched a couple of weeks back only. Yes,
Mhm.
the sign in with Google for the Builder ID.
So thank you for having described this Builder Center and Builder ID. Of course, the links are available in your podcast application and on the website. So wherever you are, you just scroll a bit down the notes of this episode and you will find the link. You can go and visit and find the resources that are there for you to help you building on AWS. Let's move to the other side. What are the technology? What is the architecture stack that the team decide to use to implement Builder Center? I guess it's deployed on AWS, otherwise you wouldn't be there. So how does it work to start a project, a program like that from scratch at AWS?
Definitely, yeah. Definitely, it's on AWS. There is no doubt about it. All the services,
I was
front end,
sure.
back end, everything, whole architecture is running on AWS. No doubt about it. Yeah. So this whole journey started around a year back, last year, somewhere in Au- August, September timeframe. I'm sure the product team
Mhm.
would have been working from pretty long back when they
Yes,
were
to define
envisioning
the
this whole Builder
requirements and
Center.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and right, we write different PRFAQs within AWS and that gets reviewed,
Mhm.
approved, and everything. The tech team started a year back, somewhere around a year back. And the whole thing started with, again, we started having multiple discussions. So I was the first hire in the Builder Center team. So, and then we built the whole team across. So currently we are in two locations in Santa Clara, California, and in Seattle also. So we have
Mhm.
two tech teams. So we started with working with the product team and reading all the documents which they have created. Started with the PRFAQ, and then we had bunch of discussions with the product. So product team had different work stream. So because Builder Center is a huge platform, so there was a different work stream like articles. There was a work stream called builder profile. There was a work stream called wish list. We'll talk about the wish list and other features which are quite new, which were not available earlier in any of the portal. And then d- within the engineering, we divided subgroups and we started working with the different product managers. Started understanding the requirements from them and all. So I started working onto the overall high level architecture of the Builder Center, that how the umbrella level view of the Builder Center will look like from architecture
Mhm.
perspective. And we'll go a little more deep into that also. So we use of course, the service oriented architecture. So we have bunch of microservices in the back end, and the front end is a single page application written in the TypeScript. So on the back end, all the services are currently running on the serverless. Every service is using Lambda. So basically, from architecture perspective, definitely we have a cloud front, and when I say bunch of services, we have 6 different microservices in the backend, and
Mhm.
those 6 different services have their own responsibility, and then they talk to different downstream services also. So when I say different downstream services, I meant by that is, as I mentioned, that the builder profile is already an existing system within AWS. The content, the articles, where the system which stores these articles and manages these articles or wishes, that was also an already existing system within AWS. So those are kind of a core dependencies for us.
Yeah, you didn't start from scratch. You can reuse existing components, microservices that were there already.
Yes, yes. So because the reason was that um, there was a portal called community.aws before the Builder Center. So
Mhm.
Builder Center took over the community.aws and changed the domain and rebuilt from scratch. Community.aws was having bunch a functionality called articles, where
Mhm.
any user can go and they can post an article.
It's a
The
blog platform for
blog
all
platform.
authenticated person. Yeah.
Yeah. Builder Center was supposed to replace the community.aws first. So we wanted to have all those articles onto the Builder Center as well, all those blog post articles, all that content onto the Builder Center. So the backend system, backend platform, which community.aws was using, that was our de facto choice to start with at least, so that
Yeah.
we saved the time of the whole migration and everything. And that was fulfilling our most of the requirement at that point of time. And due to the timelines and all, we decided to go ahead directly using that particular system for the, we call it a content management service, which manages the content for us, article, blog post and everything. Similarly, the builder profile was, there was no question about builder profile or any other system. Builder profile was the only system which manages profile for all the AWS builders. So that is also one of our core dependencies. So we didn't build those things from scratch. We build our microservices as a proxy on top of those systems, and few extra functionality which were not available in any of these platforms. Those we built in-house. I'll talk about them also. So from architecture perspective, on the front end, we have single page application. On the back end, we have 6 different microservices written in Java plus Kotlin. We have mix because it was a developer preference, and doesn't matter. Kotlin, Java both works on JVM, so it's fine. So we have a couple of services written in Kotlin, couple of services written in Java.
As a development team at AWS, can you choose your programming language if the team decide to go with Python or Node.js? That's something you can do as well.
Yeah. So there is no mandatory that we need to use these languages. It's up to team. So depending upon your learning curve, depending upon um, how familiar all the developers are with the different AWS, the internal frameworks for the development and all. So we decided to go ahead with Java and Kotlin
With Java and
for
Kotlin. And I
for service
interrupt
code.
you. You deployed on?
All the services are deployed on Lambda. So it is running on serverless Lambda. It has the API gateway fronting those Lambda. And for all those 6 services, there is one CloudFront. So there is a CloudFront. So CloudFront is the only interaction point for the front end. So front end interacts with the CloudFront. CloudFront has different origins for different microservices, and each microservice has API gateway plus Lambda.
I have 2 questions about that that are quite common from customer when we talk about this type of architecture. The
Yep.
first one is about the granularity of a Lambda function. Did you create like a monolith Lambda function that does a lot of different things, or really small Lambda function that just do one thing and one thing well?
Okay, so it's not very granular Lambda function. So again, it's because we are using one of the internal framework called Coral, and that the way it deploys the service, it's like all the related APIs. So each service has n number of APIs. So when I say
Yeah.
service, so the segregation between services, how we define that what will go in a separate service, what will go inside an existing service. So we define that by the responsibilities or the use case that particular piece of code is doing. So for example, there is one service called access management service. Its job is to only perform the authentication, authorization, and any kind of access related operations. There is one service which is user management service. The job of that particular service is to integrate with the builder profile system and all other functionality which are related to user profile, and kind of which revolves around the user. There is one more service called content management service. The responsibility of that service is to integrate with all the content platforms. So which manages the article, which manages the blog, which manages the wish list and other features, right? So depending upon the use case and responsibility, we segregate different services, and each service has bunch of APIs. Now to answer your question, because the way our internal framework deploys these services, all the APIs of one service gets deployed onto one Lambda function. And
In
that's why
one
I'm saying
Lambda
it's not
function.
very granular.
Yeah.
It's not very granular. So for example, the access management service, let's say it has 6-7 different APIs. When I say different APIs, it means one API gateway, but 6-7 different methods inside that API gateway.
Yeah, different HTTP routes, so the association of a verb and a path.
Yes,
That's 6
exactly.
different API.
Yeah, and those 6 different APIs integrate with the same Lambda function as a proxy Lambda.
But that answers the question. So the boundary is the functional. It's a functional boundary. It's the microservice itself, and all the APIs for that microservice are deployed as one Lambda function. And the other
Exactly.
one, you partially the other question I have, you partially answer it as well. Is how user authentication works. Is it done at the API gateway level? Are you using a Lambda authenticator, for example, for API gateway, or is it custom code inside the Lambda function?
Yeah, okay. So that's a good question, because authentication was something which we integrated from scratch, and there was some complexity also. When I say complexity, it's like one thing was very clear, that the authentication mechanism for the users of the builder center is going to be builder ID. So there won't be any multiple authentication mechanism. So user will see only one option to log in using the builder ID. Now within builder ID, now the social login is available. That's a functionality of builder ID. So we need not to care about it. But for the builder center perspective, the clear thing was that the user needs to log in using the builder ID. But there was one more complexity, as you know, that internally we have a different authentication mechanism, the multi-factor authentication using Midway, right? And due to security reasons, the security team had a very strong opinion that from employee authentication perspective, although it's a public website, but if an employee is logging into that particular website, they need to use the Amazon provided authentication mechanism, which is our Midway, right? So, and the reason was because we are going to have some functionality. So currently, if you see in existing functionality, few users get the AWS employee tag, right? So there the distinguish happens, that the authentication mechanism determines who is the AWS employee and who is non-employee user.
Yeah.
Right? And there the complexity was, our product team did not want to have two different sign-in options. So if you see generally in other website, logging with the builder ID or logging with as an Amazon employee, right? So it has to be single sign-in button. So when you and me log in, click on that sign-in button, we automatically sign in through the Midway. And if any non-Amazon employee clicks on that button, it automatically takes them to the builder ID. So basically we have two different authentication mechanism, builder ID and our internal one. Now, to answer your question, where that particular authentication happens, so authentication integration of that whole OIDC flow, it's a basically OIDC flow where auth code exchange happens to the session token thing. That whole authentication is being done onto one of the service called access management service, the one which I was explaining in very high level. So access management service has an integration with builder ID system, and it helps in providing all the redirection URLs where user can go and log in and acquire the auth code. And as per the OIDC specification, that auth code is being exchanged to the session token of the user. So that all thing happens in one of the service through the backend Lambda. But that is during the login process. But once the login is done, all the session validation, because on each and so we have two different experiences, right? So there are no unauthenticated experience, there is authenticated experience. So there are still few things which user can do without logging in into the builder center, right? It means, for example, if I load the builder center and I don't log in, I can still see list of articles. I can still open any article, I can see it, but I cannot like it, I cannot comment it. So we divided into two buckets. So there are APIs which are public APIs. It means the user, I mean, those APIs can be called even if the user is unauthenticated.
Not
And there
authenticated.
are, yeah, and there are APIs which are, we call it as a protected APIs, for which user must be logged in. So what does these means? This means that whenever the API call is authentication is done, user is logged in, which is fine. That is a login process. But once logged in, for each and every API call, we need to perform the validation depending upon the nature of the API, whether it's a public API or protected API. We need to perform some kind of validation of the session. So that validation, that authentication happens at the API gateway layer. So on API gateway, we have custom Lambda authorizers. So custom Lambda authorizers triggers on each and every API, and that validates the user session token. And apart from doing the session validation, it performs bunch of other validation also. uh, I mean, I won't go into very deep into that, like CSRF validation and few validation for the CloudFront headers and all.
Another frequent question from customer about this type of architecture is the deployment option. Are you deploying to one region, multiple regions? Why your choice? Whatever is your choice, one region or multiple regions.
Yeah, okay. So when we were designing the architecture, our plan was to deploy into multiple regions. And that's why we were not using the edge optimized API gateway. We were using the regionalized API gateway. We have one CloudFront, and the plan was to deploy services into multiple regions and then use the latency based routing through Route 53. So on CloudFront layer, there will be only one origin for one service. For example, let's say there is an access management service. So CloudFront will have one origin for access management service APIs, right? And that origin, the domain which we are adding in that origin of CloudFront, that will have latency based routing through Route 53. So for example,
So
let's say the
the entry door to the AWS network is CloudFront, so an edge location close to where the customer are, and CloudFront itself use a DNS endpoint that has latency-based routing. So CloudFront itself will route to one API gateway or the other. That's the idea.
yes, exactly,
Okay.
that's the idea. So entry will always be the CloudFront, so which will be from the nearest CDN point of the edge point of the user, and then based upon the latency based routing, the nearest region will be selected for that particular service. That was the plan, and we need to reach there, but currently we are running only in one region, so we need to expand the pipelines. So yes, but whole infrastructure is set up. We have the latency based routing. All hosted zones are compatible for the LBR and all. It's like we need to expand our pipeline for different regions.
Yeah, the challenge when the team is doing that is the synchronization of the data. You create data silos, and do you synchronize? Do you need to synchronize? Maybe yes, maybe not. That's typically the decision to take.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and because all these microservices are there and different regions we deploy into different accounts, so cross account domain, the hosted zone delegations and also a lot of complexity is there for achieving the regionalization. So we need to implement that particular thing. Yes.
What are the thing that you didn't expect during development? You know, when we have a plan and we apply the plan, sometimes we encounter technical challenge, difficulties that were not expected. Is there any that stand out that you remember from this project?
Yeah. So from architecture perspective, so far we talked about the technology stack only, right? The front end is and the back
Correct.
end where it is getting deployed, but we haven't talked about the databases. So
That's true.
although we are using bunch of downstream platforms which are already existing platform, but there are features on Builder Center which were not existing into any of the platform. So we built those on our own in-house. For example, let's say the follow feature. A user can follow another user on the Builder Center, right? So users can follow each other. So that follow functionality was not an existing functionality. So there wasn't any system which already had that particular functionality. So we directly integrate with it. So that whole social media kind of flavor where user can follow each other and all, that we built on our own. And for that, we are using the graph database.
I was about to ask that. I read that teams at AWS or at Amazon in general have the choice of the programming language, like you said, but also the choice of the database to use the database that better match their use case. And for user following another, a graph database seems the appropriate choice. Was it a new competency to acquire in the team, or something that some team member know already?
Yeah, because I brought this point to answer your previous question as well, and both the questions are related. That what challenges we
Okay.
faced. So this was a new competency. So I have worked previously on graph database, but I haven't set it up from scratch. And that was even before the Neptune existed. So we used to deploy Neo4j locally, and we built all infrastructure previously within Amazon only. But
Mm-hmm.
for Neptune, this was my first time, and within team also, no one had the experience working or setting up the Neptune from stack, yes, from scratch. So uh, there was so we did a lot of research about it, and because it it seems very simple that just for follow feature we are using Neptune, but it is beyond that. A lot of things are there because we know there are upcoming roadmap or upcoming features, and from nature of this website perspective, it's a pure social networking website, right? And where we need to understand relationship among different entities. When I say entities, user, their articles, their activities, their liking, their disliking. So that's the core part which we need to understand, right? And graph database is the best solution for these use cases,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where we need to maintain relationship among different
Right.
entities. I mean, it can be done in NoSQL or any relational database as well. And AWS has bunch of choices of databases. So we went ahead with the graph database for this particular use case. Now, when we were building that particular database, we didn't expect the complexity which we were getting into from the networking perspective, because the Neptune had mandatory requirement to deploy the cluster within a VPC. And the
Mm-hmm.
microservices which we were building, everything was
They were
Lambda.
they
They
were not
weren't,
in a
right?
VPC.
And based upon our design, we didn't have any intention to attach those Lambda function to any VPCs because those are in different accounts, and we didn't have any use case to attach them with the VPC. Recently, a month back, although Neptune has launched a public endpoint, so that will
That would
make,
have helped.
yeah, that would have helped at that time. So we had a lot of different office hours discussion with the Neptune team, and they mentioned that currently we do not have any option. You have to set up that whole networking. So they provided bunch of options that what we can do, which I'll explain. And they also mentioned that in future we have a plan to launch a public endpoint. At that time you can simplify your network. So now we can, but what we did was, and what challenge we faced was, this thing we didn't anticipated the amount of complexity we were about to get into from the networking perspective specifically. So creating a Neptune cluster within a VPC and exposing that cluster's endpoint outside a VPC securely, which meets all the security standard as per our security team. There
No.
we, yes, there we had to invest a lot of time and put a lot of brain there.
Can you dive a bit more in the details if you can?
Yeah,
Was it a
I mean,
proxy or a network thing or?
yeah, I mean, there's nothing new which we did there. It is an already existing available pattern which is there on the internet for the Neptune specifically. So what we did was we created a network load balancer plus HA proxy combination.
Ah, yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, so we have a network load balancer, we have a HA proxy running on Fargate instance. So these two helps in connecting the Neptune cluster, and that network load balancer is exposed to all our Lambda services. And the cluster has IAM authentication enabled, so only our services can talk to that particular cluster.
Mm-hmm.
So currently there is only one service which is talking to that particular cluster because only the follow functionality is being maintained in that particular database. But eventually we are going to have use cases where, let's say, what user is doing, like liking, commenting, those all social aspect will also come into the graph database.
At your place, sitting at your place in the podcast a few weeks ago, we had a British customer, moonpeak.com, that explained exactly the same. They want to go serverless. They don't want to manage infrastructure. But at some point, they discover that one specific service they want to use from AWS requires VPC, and in their case it was OpenSearch. In your case it's Neptune, and this is when the fun starts, because either you start to use a VPC and infrastructure, and then you need to interconnect the two different worlds. So yeah, there is still a bit of how can I say that, improvements that are possible in
Yeah,
that area.
there is one more point I would like to go a little
Mm-hmm.
bit deep into from
Yeah,
technical
sure.
perspective, the challenge which we faced. So during the designing, the use case was, now you understand, right? We have bunch of microservices, we have CloudFront and all. So front end interacts with these all microservices, which is fine through CloudFront API gateway and Lambda. But there was a use case that there was a service to service interaction also needs to happen. So front end is talking to these services is one use case, and these services talking to each other is another
To
use
each
case,
other. Hmm.
right? Now, when service to service call is happening, we didn't want to do that builder ID authentication again, right? We didn't want to do that token validation n number of times in one API call.
So you pass the token from one service to the other?
No, so we decided to do the IAM based authentication when service to service
Ah.
call happens. Now the problem is the API gateway, within an API gateway for any API, we can have only one authentication strategy, either none or IAM or custom auth or cognito.
But you cannot have both.
We cannot have two, right? So we tried something new. Um, we had multiple options. We discussed multiple options, but we went ahead with an approach where each of these service has two API gateways now. Both
One
API gateways,
for the public and one for internal calls.
yes, and both the API gateways are talking to same Lambda function. So everything is same in both the API gateways. The number of methods are same, talking to the same Lambda function. Only difference is in one API gateway, it has custom authorizers. In one another API gateway, it has IAM based authentication.
IAM authentication.
And
And you
how
can
we are
do that
doing?
because there is no extra cost for an API gateway. There is no cost per hour. It's only a cost per request. So you can do that without increasing the general bill of the system.
Yes, exactly. And so we are using the Smithy to write our API model. So Smithy
So
generates
Smithy is
a
a programming language, an API description language, and from there you can generate code in different programming language as well. That's what you're
yeah
using to describe your API. Okay, it's an
yeah. So
alternative to Open API.
Smithy is a open sourced API definition language, basically open sourced by AWS only. So uh, we use Smithy. All the Coral services uses the Smithy within Amazon, by the way. Now that one more thing where we had some problem was that we have a Smithy model which creates a API gateway. This
Mm-hmm.
is good when we need to create one API gateway only. But when we need to create two different API gateways, there we did a
The
lot of
code,
investigation
mhm. The
and
code generator were not designed for that.
yes, exactly. So Smithy has a feature called projections. So now the model which we write in Smithy, we write the superset of the uh, model which we want. So that Smithy model contains configuration for both the API gateways and it generates two different projections. In one projection, we remove the custom authorizer. In another projection, we remove the IAM authorizer or IAM authentication. And then these two projections are being used to generate two open API schema and deploy two API gateways eventually. So that is something
That's
customized thing we did in our CDK, yes.
and yeah, something that you can automate in your build process, of course, and in your CI as well. I love this type of feedback from the trench because from the architecture that you explained at the beginning, everything seems clear and normal, and that's the way to do it. And then when you enter into the implementation details, you realize, oh, but VPC connection is not working. Oh, I cannot have two authentication methods on an API gateway, and so you need to invent and to work around these and come up with solution. That's a super interesting discussion. I'm looking at time. What is the team, the roadmap? I know we are not talking publicly about roadmap, but is there anything you can disclose about the future of a Builder Center, where you're going to?
Yes, so as I mentioned in the very beginning also, the aim of the Builder Center is to consolidate these all different AWS properties into a one place so that it is easy for the builders to search for anything, to look for their desired information and all. So from upcoming roadmap perspective, we are working with these different teams, not everyone together in one go, but we
Hmm?
selected few platforms, three or four different platforms, with which we are working to bring them inside Builder Center. So those teams are also very interested in integrating their system with the Builder Center. So eventually it is going to be same like console, because console is also not owned by a single team, right? Console, the AWS console
It's a portal. Mm-hmm.
as a portal owned by one team, but all the different internal micro front ends are owned by different service team. So that's what the vision is, and that's what we are working towards. So um, I'm not sure if I can share a couple of tools which will be integrated even before this reinvent. So we are working very fast and very aggressively on two different tools. One, I think one I can share because that is already in public also. So there is a uh, region comparison tool from AWS side. Where user can see that what all services are available in which all regions and what all features are available in which
Oh,
all regions.
that would be super useful. Yeah.
So that region comparison tool is undergoing a complete revamp. That is going to be available onto the Builder Center soon. So similarly, the upcoming roadmap will also be kind of similar thing, that whatever the high traffic tools are which Builder uses, bring those experience within the Builder Center.
Yeah, if something is useful for builders and for the community, it will progressively migrate to the Builder Center. And the goal, as you
Yes.
said at the beginning of this episode, is to have like one central place where all technical information is available from
Yes.
for community members and the developers. And there are many more things that you cannot talk about, but I know a few things that you're working on and that your team is working on, and I'm super excited about what's coming for the Builder Center. So stay tuned and watch reInvent, the AWS conference that will happen very soon at Las Vegas. It will be first week of December. There will be more announcements before, during, and after around Builder Center. Thank you, Rupal, for your super clear explanation and that fascinating discussion about how to build a web app at scale with a modern architecture, microservice based on serverless, and so some of the, and yeah, special thank you for explaining some of the paper cuts and the difficulties that your team encountered during building that, because I think it's valuable for our listeners to know what they have to expect if they embark on this type of development as well. So thanks a lot. Thank you for having listened to this episode until the end. And now go build.